Hey guys, tonight we're slipping back in time to the fog-choked English countryside, to a place where the hearth rarely warms, and the drafty halls echo with the clatter of silver trays and whispered regrets. You're about to become a servant, yes, you, in a cold, creaking Victorian manor. The kind of place where the wallpaper peels, the soup is always lukewarm, and if the work doesn't break you, the winter probably will. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your location and what time it is where you're watching from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your boots crunch on gravel as the carriage wheels rattle off into the fog, leaving you alone at the wrought iron gates of Greymire Manor. The name alone makes your stomach tighten. It sounds more like a mausoleum than a home. The air is raw, slicing at your cheeks. Somewhere beyond those gates lies your future, wrapped in the stiff linens and stiff upper lips of Victorian service. The iron squeals as you push the gate open. On either side, bare-branched yew trees claw at the gray sky, their limbs black against the smothering clouds. Gravel shifts beneath your feet as you trudge along the winding path, your modest suitcase bumping against your thigh. Ahead, the manor looms, 4 stories of stern, gray stone, its chimneys coughing weak threads of smoke into the slate sky. It's colder than you expected for late autumn, but they warned you about that. Greymire Manor, they said, was always cold. The sort of cold that seeps into your bones, like the place itself disapproves of your body heat. The front steps are wide, uneven slabs, slick with moss. You hesitate for a moment, then rap the heavy iron knocker against the door, a weather-beaten, black oak monstrosity engraved with curling vines and faint, almost unreadable initials, WG, the family crest. You barely have time to lower your hand before the door creaks inward. A narrow, sharp-faced woman peers out at you. Her eyes rake down your coat, your worn shoes, your nervous stance. "New one, are you?" she says, voice like brittle parchment. You nod, clutching your suitcase. She steps aside without ceremony, revealing a dark, tiled foyer with a threadbare carpet stretching toward the grand staircase. Don't stand there freezing your wits off. In. The door slams behind you, muffling the wind. You half expect the foyer to be warmer, but inside is no better. The faint scent of coal smoke, polish, and boiled cabbage lingers in the air. Candle sconces sputter weak orange light, their flames bending with every stray draft. The woman marches ahead, heels clicking sharply on the tiles. "Mrs. Price," she introduces herself without looking back. "Housekeeper." You answer to me. You scramble to keep up, suitcase bouncing, eyes darting over your surroundings. High ceilings with dark wood beams, portraits glaring from dusty walls, a grandfather clock ticking somewhere unseen. You pass a tall mirror and barely recognize yourself, pale, wide-eyed, wool coat slightly too thin for this bitter place. Mrs. Price sweeps down a side corridor. Lord and Lady Greymire are away at present. The staff, what's left of them, will show you the ropes. What's left of them? You don't ask. Something about the way she says it makes your scalp prickle. You descend a narrow, stone staircase tucked behind a heavy door. The air down here smells damper, colder still. It's the servants' domain, a world beneath the grand facade. The walls close in, plaster cracked, ceilings low enough to bump your head if you're not careful. At the bottom, a cramped hall stretches ahead. The faint clatter of pots, muffled chatter, and a waft of bread baking reach your ears. For a moment, the warmth of the oven smells almost hopeful. "This is your lot," Mrs. Price says, pushing open a door. The servants' quarters are a row of narrow bunk rooms, no larger than prison cells. You glimpse iron bed frames, thin mattresses, battered trunks. A young woman with flushed cheeks and sleeves rolled to her elbows pauses folding linens to eye you warily. A gangly boy with straw-colored hair flicks his gaze up from polishing boots. "New blood," Mrs. Price announces with all the enthusiasm of reporting a broken window. "Name?" You stammer it out, your voice oddly loud in the tight space. "Well," Mrs. Price sighs. "Find a bed, don't snore, and if you last a fortnight, I'll learn your name properly." She vanishes as quickly as she came, leaving you standing awkwardly in the dim room. The flushed-cheeked girl offers a lopsided smile. "Don't mind her," she says. "I'm Elsie." The boy snorts. "If you're clever, you'll leave before your teeth freeze." You force a smile, but inside, your stomach knots. The stone walls, the rattling window panes, the thin bedding, it all feels like a punishment wrapped in linen. Historians still argue whether servants in homes like this were better off than factory workers, but judging by the draft clawing at your ankles, it's a close contest. At least in the factory, you'd be warm, probably missing fingers, but warm. As you claim an empty bunk, Elsie nudges your shoulder gently. "Sleep if you can," she whispers. "Bells start at 5. You'll need every minute." You lie back on the straw mattress, coat still buttoned tight, and stare at the low, cracked ceiling. The manor creaks around you, timbers settling, pipes groaning, the faint scrape of branches outside the tiny window. This is your life now. Greymire Manor, where the fog never lifts, the walls never warm, and the only thing colder than the stone is the family upstairs. The bells start before your dreams even settle. A shrill, metallic clang echoes down the stone corridor, reverberating through your skull and rattling your teeth. You lurch upright, momentarily forgetting where you are. The ceiling is low, the air sharp with coal dust and cold mildew. Right. The manor. The job. The future you definitely didn't sign up for when you thought domestic service sounded respectable. Across the narrow room, Elsie groans softly, tugging a threadbare blanket tighter around her shoulders. The blond boy, Jack, you think his name was, has already swung out of bed, tugging on his boots with the weary precision of someone who's done this 1,000 times. "Up," he mutters as he passes. "Or Mrs. Price'll have your hide hung in the pantry." You stumble out of bed, toes curling against the icy floor. Your boots are stiff, still damp from yesterday's journey. As you tug them on, your breath fogs in the air, swirling like smoke. There's no fireplace down here, only a small, grudging stove in the corner that looks more decorative than functional. Outside the bunk room, the servants' quarters hum with movement. Young men and women shuffle bleary-eyed through the narrow hall, buttoning uniforms, tightening aprons, snatching crusts of bread from a chipped plate on a sideboard. You snag your uniform, plain black wool with a starched white collar and cuffs. The fabric is rough, the stitching coarse. You fumble with the buttons, but there's no time for vanity or comfort here. This isn't some grand period drama where servants share witty banter over tea. This is survival. The main corridor is dim, gas lamps hissing faintly along the plaster walls. A single crooked mirror reflects your nervous face as you pass, a pale, stiff-collared figure bracing for the day ahead. The first task? Scrubbing floors. Always the floors. The stone staircase leads up to the servants' entrance, a side door that opens onto the manor's east wing. The kitchen is already a flurry of motion, pots bubbling, knives chopping, steam curling from the bread ovens. The cook, a broad-shouldered woman with arms like rolling pins, barks orders as kitchen maids scurry to and fro. But you're not in the kitchen crew. You, lucky soul, are on housework duty. Which starts, naturally, with mopping the entrance hall. Armed with a splintery mop and a dented bucket of near-frozen water, you trudge into the grand foyer. The black and white marble tiles stretch endlessly under your feet, each one dulled with footprints, soot smears, and last night's drizzle. The grand staircase spirals upward, its banisters polished to a dull gleam. Above, a massive chandelier sways gently in the draft, its crystal pendants chiming softly like distant wind chimes. You dunk the mop, water sloshing cold over your hands, and begin scrubbing. Your fingers quickly go numb, your knuckles red and raw. You work in silence, interrupted only by the occasional muttered complaint from a fellow servant or the faint chiming of the grandfather clock. Fun fact: Victorian servants often started their day as early as 4:30 a.m., scrubbing, polishing, and dusting every surface before the family of the house even stirred. A full 12 to 14-hour day was common. And if you were a scullery maid or boot boy, well, good luck ever seeing daylight. Your arms ache within minutes. Your back twinges as you stretch to reach beneath the heavy sideboard. The marble floor gleams faintly under your work, but the cold never leaves your hands. From the upper landing, voices drift down, stiff, clipped tones. The Greymires are home. You stiffen automatically. Even though they haven't appeared yet, their presence changes everything. Jack passes you, balancing a silver tray laden with tea things. He nods slightly as he goes. "There'll be wonton breakfast soon," he murmurs. "Best finish that floor." You scrub faster, the mop scraping over the stone. As you work, you spot a curious detail above the doorway, a small carving set into the wood. A pair of crossed keys. Elsie mentioned it last night, between bites of dry bread. The old family symbol, she'd explained. The keys to Greymire. Supposed to mean they can lock away secrets, or people. She'd smirked, but her eyes hadn't been entirely joking. Historians still argue whether symbols like that held any real authority, or if they were just a pompous way for rich families to feel important. But standing here, staring at those carved keys, you can't help but wonder. The floor gleams at last, and you wring out the mop, fingers trembling from cold and effort. Before you can retreat to the warmth of the lower halls, Mrs. Price materializes at your elbow, eyes sharp as ice picks. "Dining room's next," she says. "Silver needs polishing. Mind you don't smudge a single piece." You bite back a sigh and trudge after her, down a side corridor lined with fading portraits and drafty windows. The cold follows you everywhere, a silent companion in this vast, unforgiving house. The dining room is as grand as you'd expect: long mahogany table, chairs with carved lion heads, heavy curtains drawn tightly over tall windows. But your eyes are drawn to the sideboard, where silver gleams like frozen moonlight. Dozens of forks, spoons, knives, serving tongs, and more. All to be polished by hand. You settle in, cloth and polish at the ready. Your reflection wavers in the curved silver as you work, your fingers stiff but determined. At least in here, your hands warm slightly from the friction. By the time the sun weakly rises beyond the curtains, your arms ache, your eyes sting, and your stomach growls. But the silver gleams, the floor shines, and, perhaps most importantly, you haven't yet frozen solid. Small victories. Jack wanders past with a smirk. Told you your fingers freeze. You smile faintly. They're still attached, mostly. And so, your first miserable, exhausting, utterly freezing morning at Greymire Manor draws to a close. You're under no illusions, it won't get easier. But maybe, just maybe, you'll survive long enough to find your place in this cold, creaking machine. The bells toll again. This time, they clang from the east tower, their iron tongues echoing through the manor like a funeral march for your remaining energy. It's barely past dawn. Outside, weak sunlight filters through fog-thick windows, casting watery patterns on the stone floors. Your back already aches from polishing silver. Your fingers, raw from scrubbing marble, sting as you flex them. But there's no time for self-pity. The morning routine at Greymire Manor is just beginning. And it waits for no one. Down in the scullery, the air is thick with steam and the scent of damp wool. You're assigned to floors again, because apparently, your mop-wielding debut yesterday wasn't punishment enough. This time, it's the back corridors, the ones the family never sees but expects spotless regardless. Buckets by the pump, Elsie tells you, balancing a stack of napkins higher than her head. Mind the ice. You find the pump outside, near the servants' entrance. The yard beyond is a bleak rectangle of flagstones and frostbitten hedges. The sky overhead is an endless stretch of gray, as though the clouds themselves are exhausted. The pump handle groans as you work it, icy water gushing into your bucket. The moment it splashes over the rim, your hands go numb. You curse softly under your breath, nothing profane enough to get scolded for, but enough to vent the chill that burrows into your bones. Victorian servants often haul dozens of gallons of water indoors every day, especially in grand houses without proper plumbing. In places like Greymire Manor, the pump is your lifeline, and your personal tormentor. Balancing the sloshing bucket, you creep back inside, icy water splattering your shoes. The flagstones underfoot are slick. A tumble here means more than bruised pride. Mrs. Price would flay you alive, verbally, of course. The woman's tongue is sharper than any knife in the kitchen. The first corridor is narrow, poorly lit. You set down the bucket, grab the mop, and begin the ritual of scrubbing away invisible dirt, all while your breath clouds the air in front of you. Careful not to work too fast, Jack's voice drawls from somewhere nearby. Finish too soon and they'll just find you more floors. You glance up to find him leaning in a doorway, polishing a pair of riding boots to a dull shine. His smirk is infuriatingly casual for someone whose knuckles are as chapped as yours. Want to trade? You offer, half joking. Boot polish or mop water? He raises an eyebrow. Toss up, that. You both share a tired, quiet laugh. By the time you finish the corridor, your fingers are bright red and your shoulders stiff. The water in the bucket has a thin film of ice creeping across its surface. You empty it outside, watching your breath puff like smoke. Inside again, the manor creaks and groans like some vast, ancient ship at sea. Floorboards shift. Pipes moan. Somewhere in the walls, something scurries. A rat, likely, or maybe the infamous Greymire weasel Elsie claimed chewed through someone's sock drawer last winter. You try not to imagine what else lurks unseen. Back downstairs, the scullery is in full chaos. Pots clatter, the cook bellows, steam curls from boiling kettles. You sneak a crust of bread when no one's watching, the rough loaf hard enough to chip a tooth, but you barely care. Hunger turns even sawdust into a treat. Then comes the brass, the handles, fixtures, candle holders, all polished until they gleam like liquid gold. You work methodically, the rag slick with polish, your knuckles stinging as the bitter air creeps under your sleeves. One quirky historical tidbit? They used to mix beeswax with turpentine to get that perfect brass shine. The fumes alone could knock you sideways, but hey, the handles looked fantastic. You wonder if your rag reeks of the same concoction. By late morning, the faintest warmth seeps through the stone walls as the hearths upstairs roar to life. But down here? The cold clings to everything, your bones, your clothes, your resolve. Mrs. Price appears, inspecting your work like a general surveying the front line. Her eyes narrow on the brass you've polished. She runs a gloved finger over one handle. It gleams. No smudge. Passable, she sniffs. But don't get cocky. You resist the urge to salute. Probably not wise. The bells toll again. Time for breakfast. Not yours, of course, theirs. The lords and ladies of Greymire Manor, currently tucked behind heavy oak doors, expect their morning meal laid out perfectly. That means the serving staff has already assembled trays of poached eggs, kippers, toast soldiers, and marmalade, all steaming and spotless. You aren't on breakfast service yet, but you watch Jack disappear upstairs with a tray. His posture is perfect, his expression blank. Like a ghost in starched black wool. Historians still argue whether servants were expected to be invisible or merely silent, but here, invisibility feels like policy. If you're seen, it's usually because something's gone wrong. Elsie, returning from upstairs, catches your eye as you pass. Smile less, she warns in a whisper. They think you're up to something if you look too cheerful. You can't help it, a tiny, rebellious smile tugs at the corner of your mouth anyway. Even in this cold, exhausting place, some small spark refuses to freeze over entirely. The morning routine stretches on, floors scrubbed, brass polished, windows cleaned, fires lit, though the warmth never reaches you. It feels endless, like the manor itself is feeding on your energy. But somehow, you keep moving. Step by frozen step. Tomorrow, it'll all begin again. By the time midday creeps over the gray hills outside, the manor settles into its unnerving rhythm. You've survived the first morning, just barely, and now comes what the older servants call the quiet hours. It's an absolute lie. There's nothing quiet about them. The family is tucked away, reading, scheming, or brooding behind velvet curtains, while the staff scramble to reset the house for the afternoon. You're given your next assignment, the linen cupboard. It sounds harmless enough. Until you open the door. A bitter draft escapes as you pull the cupboard open, revealing row upon row of shelves stacked with sheets, napkins, and towels, all in varying shades of off-white. You swear the pile leans forward, threatening to collapse and smother you in a cotton avalanche. Good luck, Elsie whispers as she passes, carrying an armload of fresh firewood. Don't let the moths eat you. The linen cupboard is more than just storage, it's practically a shrine to Greymire's obsessive standards. Every towel folded to regulation. Every sheet starched within an inch of its life. Every pillowcase inspected for imperfections that only Mrs. Price's hawk eyes can detect. A mainstream historical fact for you. Victorian linen cupboards were status symbols. A well-stocked one proved wealth and cleanliness, even if the house itself leaked like a sieve. The Greymires? They have enough linens to swaddle a small army. You set to work, sorting, folding, smoothing edges. The cloth is cold and stiff, like handling frozen sails on a ship. Your fingers, already raw from scrubbing floors, snag on the coarse seams. Half an hour in, your mind starts to wander. You think of home, the cramped flat, the peeling wallpaper, the smell of coal smoke always lingering in your clothes. It wasn't much, but it was warm. Here, the cold never leaves. It seeps into your marrow, settles behind your eyes. From somewhere down the hall, the faint, high-pitched strains of a piano drift through the walls. You pause, linen in hand, listening. The melody is slow, haunting, a waltz, maybe? It feels out of place here, like hearing laughter in a graveyard. Lady Agatha, mutters Jack as he passes, balancing another tray. Practices every day. Never improves. You raise an eyebrow. Sounds fancy. Sounds like a cat walking across the keys. He snorts softly. But don't say that near the drawing room. You return to your folding, the off-key music following you like a ghost. Partway through rearranging the towels, your fingers brush against something odd, a gap at the back of the shelf. Curious, you reach in, fingertips grazing cool stone. Then, your hand finds a small, iron ring, embedded in the wall. A hidden compartment? You tug gently. The ring shifts, but nothing happens. You try again, harder this time. A faint groan of old wood, but no secret door swings open, no hidden treasure spills out. Just the stubborn chill of stone and secrecy. Historians still argue whether most grand houses had hidden compartments or if that's pure Gothic fiction. But here, in Greymire Manor, with its creaking floors and endless drafty corners, you wouldn't be surprised if skeletons, literal or metaphorical, lurked behind every panel. You let the ring go. Another mystery for another, braver day. As the clock strikes 2, Mrs. Price appears, inspecting your linen work with the intensity of a jewel appraiser. Her expression, as always, hovers somewhere between unimpressed and deeply suspicious. Corners crisp. No wrinkles, she states. Good. A win. You mentally mark it on the scoreboard. You won, Manor, several thousand. She hands you a feather duster and points down the hall. The blue parlor. You'll dust the woodwork. Your arms groan at the prospect, but you nod and head off. The blue parlor is a small sitting room near the south wing, rarely used, but never neglected. It's colder in here, if that's even possible. The blue wallpaper shimmers faintly in the weak daylight, the intricate pattern of vines and flowers curling up the walls like frozen ivy. You run the duster along the mantelpiece, careful of the delicate porcelain figurines. On the far wall, a portrait stares down at you. A Greymire ancestor, judging by the severe cheekbones and faint sneer. His eyes seem to follow you as you dust, which is comforting. Don't blink, Sir Charles, you mutter under your breath, or I'm quitting. You dust around his frame, noting how the corners of the room seem darker than they should be, the fireplace cold and empty. Even the furniture looks uncomfortable, stiff-backed chairs, a fainting couch that could double as a torture device. As you finish, the door creaks behind you. You spin around, expecting Mrs. Price, or worse, Lord Greymire himself. But no one's there. Just the empty hall beyond. You swallow hard, dust motes swirling in the air. You remind yourself this is an old house. Old houses make noises. And yet, you can't shake the sensation that something, or someone, is watching from the shadows. The manor settles again, groaning like an old ship listing at sea. You finish your dusting and slip out, back into the maze of corridors. In the servants' hall, the others are finishing their tasks, faces pale from cold and fatigue. You catch Jack's eye. Blue parlor's haunted, you inform him flatly. Of course it is, he replies without missing a beat. You'll get used to it. Somehow, that doesn't feel reassuring. But as the bells toll again, summoning you for yet another round of endless chores, you shove your unease aside. One foot in front of the other. Dust. Polish. Fold. Survive. Greymire Manor isn't going to defeat you. Not yet. You barely have time to breathe before the next task finds you. The bells echo again, a sharp, impatient clanging that rattles through the stone halls. Upstairs, the family requires their afternoon tea. Downstairs, that translates to chaos. The kitchen is a boiling, shouting, flour-dusted war zone. You're swept into the fray with no chance to protest. Your job? Fetch coal for the stove, because apparently, the scullery boy disappeared again. Rumor has it he hides in the root cellar to sleep. Bold. You trudge out to the coal shed behind the manor, boots crunching over frozen mud. The shed itself leans precariously, its wooden walls patched with rusted nails and good intentions. Inside, the coal heap glistens black and sharp-edged, like jagged obsidian. The sack they've given you feels like it weighs more than your entire body. You wrestle it into position, breathing shallowly as coal dust coats your sleeves, your throat, your very soul. Victorian coal was essential to life, but absolutely filthy. By the end of winter, most households were painted in a layer of black grime, inside and out. You're starting to understand why. By the time you stagger back to the kitchen, you look like you've been rolling in soot. No one notices. They're too busy with scones, sandwiches, and something that smells suspiciously burnt. Cook barks at you to stoke the stove. You do, tossing coal into the iron mouth of the beast until flames roar, and for the first time all day, real heat kisses your frozen cheeks. You want to stand there forever. You cannot. Once the trays are assembled, Jack and Elsie disappear upstairs with the tea service. You, lucky you, are sent to the glasshouse. It sounds pleasant, doesn't it? Like a sunny, lemon-scented garden stroll. In reality, it's an icy, fogged-over greenhouse clinging to the manor's east wing. Inside, you're greeted by a jungle of dying orchids, brittle ferns, and creeping ivy that looks entirely too sentient for your liking. Your job: prune, tidy, and sweep. All without damaging the plants that Lady Agatha allegedly adores but never tends herself. The glasshouse roof is high, arched, and sweating with condensation. Every breath fogs the air. The stone floor is slick beneath your boots, and somewhere in the tangle of foliage, water drips in a maddening rhythm. Quirky historical tidbit incoming: Victorian glasshouses were all the rage among the wealthy, status symbols filled with exotic plants shipped from far-off colonies. The Greymires aren't exactly trendsetters, but their glasshouse clings stubbornly to that faded glamour. You navigate between the pots, careful not to knock over the clay urns or trip on stray roots. The plants loom around you, their leaves shivering faintly in the draft. Some of them look unhealthy. Yellowed, wilting, drooping like forgotten laundry. The temptation to whisper encouragement to the orchids is strong. Maybe they're as miserable here as you are. As you trim dead leaves and sweep the floor, your eyes drift to the far corner. There, hidden beneath a drooping fern, is another small door, warped, weather-stained, barely noticeable. You wouldn't have spotted it if not for the faint, reddish handprint smudged on the wood. You blink. Lean closer. It's faint, old, probably paint. You hope it's paint. The door is locked, of course. No keyhole on this side. Just the old iron latch, rusted solid. Another mystery tucked into the manor's many corners. You're beginning to wonder how many secrets this place holds. Historians still argue whether these hidden nooks served practical purposes or simply fueled ghost stories. You know where your vote lies, standing alone in this chilly, whispering glasshouse. You finish your sweeping, disposing of dead leaves and petals in a rusted bin. On your way out, your reflection catches in the fogged glass, pale face, coal-smudged sleeves, eyes a little too wide. You barely recognize yourself. Back in the main house, the quiet hours are coming to a close. You find the others in the servants' hall, snatching quick bites of bread and weak tea before the evening duties begin. The faintest glow of sunset filters through the narrow windows, turning the stone walls a sickly orange. Elsie plunks down beside you, her apron smudged with flour. Made it through another one, she sighs, tearing her bread in half. Barely. You'll get used to it. You glance around the hall. The tired faces, the chapped hands, the hunched shoulders. Maybe she's right. Maybe numbness counts as getting used to it. But the manor hums beneath your feet. Drafts curl around your ankles. Somewhere, unseen doors creak. It's a strange, ancient place. And you have a feeling the real work, and the real secrets, are only just beginning. The manor doesn't sleep, and neither, apparently, do you. Evening settles over Greymire like a heavy wool blanket, scratchy, suffocating, and impossible to shake off. You're back on your feet before your tea's even cooled. Tonight's task? The front hall floors. You've seen them already, of course, wide, gleaming black and white tiles that stretch beneath the grand staircase like a giant chessboard. Now, you're meant to polish them until they reflect candlelight like a still pond. You grab a bucket of soapy water and a stiff bristled brush, your fingers already protesting. The stone is freezing beneath your knees as you scrub, each tile a miniature battlefield. Mainstream historical fact, Victorian floor tiles weren't just decorative, they were a sign of modernity. Patterned and caustic tiles, especially in checkerboard or geometric designs, were all the rage for the wealthy. In theory, they're easier to clean. In reality, your aching arms disagree. Above you, candle sconces flicker along the walls. The massive front doors loom at the far end, bolted tight against the night. Through the tall, leaded windows, you can barely make out the snow beginning to fall. Somewhere upstairs, the family dines. Their voices drift faintly down, muffled, refined, utterly uninterested in the army of servants keeping the house running beneath them. You imagine silver clinking, wine being poured, whispered gossip about things far beyond your pay grade. Your brush scrapes over the tiles. Over and over. The rhythm dulls your mind until you almost forget where you are. Almost. Because then you notice the smell. It's faint, but unmistakable, smoke. Not from the fireplaces. Not the warm, woody scent of coal or peat. This is sharper, sour, like burnt fabric. You pause, sitting back on your heels. The front hall is empty. Silent, except for the quiet hiss of candle flames and your own breathing. You sniff again. There, faint, lingering. And, a hint of something else. Sulfur? You frown. That's not a scent you expect indoors. Don't mind that. You jump, spinning around. Jack leans in the doorway, arms folded, expression unreadable. Smoke, you ask. He nods. happens sometimes. Old chimneys, bad drafts. Or so they say. His eyes drift toward the grand staircase. Or something else. Something else like. He hesitates. Then, with a shrug, you'll hear the stories soon enough. Quirky tidbit for you: Victorian houses, especially old country manors, were notorious for odd smells and strange noises. Blame bad insulation, faulty plumbing, or other things. Jack disappears down the hall, leaving you with your brush, the tiles, and the faint, smoky air curling at the edges of your nerves. You scrub faster. By the time you finish, your arms are jelly, but the floor gleams. Your reflection stares back, tired, pale, eyes ringed with exhaustion. You're about to head to the servants' hall when Mrs. Price appears, gliding across the tiles with the uncanny silence of a Victorian ghost herself. "Cellar," she says, not even breaking stride. "Wine needs fetching." You suppress a groan. The cellar. It lies beneath the manor, carved into the earth like a crypt. The stone steps spiral downward, damp and uneven. The single lantern they've given you barely pushes back the shadows. The air grows colder as you descend, heavy with the scent of stone and mildew. Wooden racks loom in the gloom, lined with dusty bottles, some labeled, some so ancient the labels have crumbled to nothing. Your task is simple enough: 2 bottles of red for the dining room. But as you fumble through the racks, your eyes adjust to the darkness, and you notice something odd. In the far corner of the cellar, beyond the wine racks, is a door. Small, wooden, almost blending into the stone. Unlike the grand oak doors upstairs, this one is plain, utilitarian, but newer than the surrounding walls. You edge closer. The door's iron latch is locked tight, but you spot the faint outline of recent scratches along the wood, as if someone, or something, has tried to force it open. Historians still argue whether secret rooms in manors were used for smuggling, priest holes, or simply to hide valuables. Whatever lies beyond that door, you doubt its extra linens. You grab the wine bottles and retreat up the stairs, heart thudding a little faster. Back in the kitchen, the heat and noise slap you in the face like a waking spell. Cook takes the bottles with barely a grunt of acknowledgement. Elsie catches your eye as she peels potatoes near the hearth. "You went down there?" "Yeah. Weird door." She nods, unsurprised. "Don't worry. You'll see stranger. Stranger than sulfur-scented smoke and locked cellar doors." Somehow, you don't doubt it. The evening drags on, polishing, scrubbing, carrying, fetching. Your back screams, your feet throb, and still the manor demands more. By the time your head hits the thin mattress in the attic, your eyes barely stay open. But even as sleep drags you down, the faint smell of sulfur and smoke lingers in your nose. And somewhere in the dark, the manor creaks, watching. The next morning slaps you awake with all the subtlety of a brick through a window. The attic room is freezing, your breath hanging in little ghostly clouds as you sit up on the thin, lumpy mattress. Dawn hasn't even properly arrived, just that bleak, blue-gray hint of light that creeps across the frosted glass. The bells downstairs jangle again, because apparently, in Victorian England, sleep is considered an optional luxury for servants. You swing your legs out of bed, wincing as your bare feet hit the icy floorboards. Beside you, Elsie groans, pulling her blanket over her head. Jack's already gone. Of course he is. That boy has survival instincts sharper than his wit. First duty. Fire duty. Again. You shuffle downstairs, boots thudding softly on the steps, carrying the coal scuttle like some kind of soot-streaked offering to the domestic gods. The grand drawing room is colder than the attic. You can see your reflection in the frosted window panes, pale and shivering, bundled in your oversized servant's coat. The fireplace yawns empty and black. You kneel, coaxing coals and kindling to life with practiced, frozen fingers. Historical fact incoming: Victorian homes were often freezing, especially in winter, because fireplaces were inefficient and central heating was rare. You're living proof of that particular bit of misery. The flames sputter, then catch, filling the room with faint warmth and the scent of burning peat and coal dust. You take a moment to hover near the hearth, soaking in the fleeting heat. Your moment doesn't last. Mrs. Price's voice cuts through the quiet like a knife. Parlor next. And mind the silver. The parlor is worse. It's all overstuffed chairs, velvet curtains, and an army of fragile, scowling porcelain figurines that look ready to report you for breathing near them. You dust with the utmost caution, fully aware that breaking even one of these could see your wages docked, or worse. As you work, your eyes drift toward the tall cabinet by the window. Its glass doors gleam faintly, and behind them sits an assortment of oddities: sea-shells, fossilized bones, curious little vials with faded labels. Typical rich people weirdness. One item stands out, a jar containing what looks like a shriveled, blackened hand. You blink. Look again. Yep, still there. You swallow. What, exactly is that? You mutter under your breath. Hand of glory, comes a voice behind you. You jump, nearly upsetting the dust cloth. It's Mr. Phipps, the butler, appearing with his usual unnerving silence. Hand of, what now, you ask? Quirky tidbit time. The Hand of Glory was a grim piece of folklore, supposedly the severed, pickled hand of a hanged man, used by thieves to render household occupants asleep while they robbed the place. Lovely. Old superstition, Phipps says. But the master keeps it for historical interest. His eyes crinkle slightly, though his mouth never smiles. Or so he says. You manage a weak chuckle, resisting the urge to cover the jar with a cloth. Just another day in this charming, nightmare-adjacent manor. After dusting, it's back to the grind, cleaning, polishing, carrying, fetching. By now, your muscles ache in ways you didn't know possible, and your mind operates on autopilot. You almost forget about the smoke, the cellar door, the hand in the jar. Almost. It's not until the post arrives that things get interesting again. The mail coach pulls up outside, wheels crunching over the icy drive. The housemaid collects the bundle, letters, packages, a few ominous, wax-sealed envelopes bearing the Greymire family crest. You're handed a small box, wrapped neatly in brown paper, addressed in spidery handwriting to the Honorable Lady Agatha Greymire. "Take that to the morning room," Mrs. Price instructs. You nod, cradling the box as you navigate the halls. The morning room sits at the rear of the house, overlooking the snow-dusted gardens. Lady Agatha reclines there most days, sipping tea and doing embroidery, which you suspect is mostly for show. Today, she sits by the window, her sharp eyes fixed on the gardens beyond. A gray Persian cat sprawls across her lap, regarding you with the same haughty disapproval as its owner. "Package for you, ma'am," you say, placing it carefully on the table. Her eyes flick to the box, then to you. For a moment, you think she's going to tell you to leave. But instead, she gestures faintly. "Open it." You hesitate. "Ma'am?" A sigh. "I said open it. My hands are occupied." She strokes the cat pointedly. You fumble with the twine, peeling back the paper to reveal a small, velvet-lined case. Inside lies an ornate silver pendant, shaped like an Ouroboros, a snake devouring its own tail. Its eyes glitter with tiny garnets. Lady Agatha smiles faintly. "Beautiful, isn't it? Came all the way from Prague." You nod, though the pendant sends a faint shiver along your spine. Historians still argue whether such symbols were purely decorative or carried occult significance. Looking at the Ouroboros now, you're leaning toward the latter. "Run along," Lady Agatha says, already lost in her own reflection. You leave the morning room, the image of the snake pendant lingering in your mind, curling like smoke. It's barely noon, and you can feel the manor's mysteries tightening around you, coils of history, superstition, and things that refuse to stay buried. And your day isn't even half over. The snow falls heavier by afternoon, blanketing the estate in thick silence. The view from the servants' entrance looks like a Christmas card, if you ignore the bone-deep cold, the impossible workload, and the looming, half-haunted manor behind you. You're hauling wood now. Because apparently, heating a drafty mansion requires the strength of a coal miner and the patience of a saint. Your arms ache from the endless trips to and from the woodshed, your fingers gone numb despite gloves. As you trudge across the courtyard, Elsie falls in step beside you, balancing a bundle of kindling. Her nose is red from the cold, but her eyes glitter with gossip. "Did you hear about the governess?" she asks, like it's the start of a thrilling penny dreadful. "Which one?" "Thought they left weeks ago." "Exactly." Elsie shifts the kindling under one arm. "This one's new. Arrived last night. Pretty as a picture, but..." She lowers her voice. "They say she's a spiritualist." Quirky tidbit time, spiritualism, the belief that the dead could communicate with the living through seances and mediums, swept through Victorian society like a ghostly fever. Parlors across England hosted table rappings, spirit boards, and dramatic seances, even Queen Victoria reportedly dabbled. You raise an eyebrow. A spiritualist governess? For the Greymire children? Elsie shrugs. That's the talk. Seems they've had trouble keeping anyone in that nursery. Bad dreams. Odd noises. Children saying strange things. Your footsteps crunch over the snow. Suddenly, the manor doesn't look so picturesque. Inside, the work never ends. You stoke fires, scrub stair rails, polish silver. Your legs feel like lead. By the time you're summoned to the upper floors with clean linens, you can barely climb the steps. The nursery sits at the end of the east wing, far from the grand bedrooms, almost tucked away like an afterthought. The wallpaper is faded, the floorboards creakier than elsewhere. You knock softly. The door opens a crack. A woman peers out, young, maybe mid-20s, with sharp, intelligent eyes and dark curls pinned under a modest cap. Despite the plain black dress, she carries herself with quiet confidence. "You must be the new maid," she says. You nod. "Linens, miss." She opens the door wider. The nursery is warm, filled with the scent of lavender and wood smoke. Toys are neatly arranged on the shelves, a half-finished puzzle lies on the play table. But, the atmosphere feels heavy. Like the room is holding its breath. "My name's Miss Calder," she offers, taking the linens. "If you hear strange things up here, don't be alarmed." You hesitate. "Strange things like?" She smiles faintly. "Children with vivid imaginations." Mainstream historical fact, Victorian children were often seen as innocent, yet strangely susceptible to otherworldly influences, a common theme in Gothic literature of the period. From the turn of the screw to countless ghost stories, kids and creepy old houses were a classic combination. You glance at the bed. Two small figures lie there, twins, pale and sleeping, their fair hair splayed across the pillows. Their faces are unnervingly still. Miss Calder follows your gaze. Exhausted. Poor dears have had restless nights. You shiver, remembering Elsie's gossip. Bad dreams. Strange whispers. As you leave, Miss Calder's voice follows you. "Not everything in this house is as it seems." The words cling to you like fog as you descend the staircase. The evening brings a storm. Wind howls down the chimneys, rattling windows. The snow whips in frantic sheets across the courtyard. The manor creaks and groans like a ship in rough seas. You're sent to help secure the library. Apparently Lord Greymire's prized collection doesn't fare well in damp. The library is cavernous, all carved oak and soaring shelves, the kind of place that smells of dust, leather, and forgotten knowledge. As you mop up the melted snow near the door, your eyes drift over the shelves. Hundreds of volumes, history, philosophy, science, and one section, discreetly tucked in the shadows, full of esoteric titles. You can't help yourself. You edge closer. The books here bear peculiar names: The Veil Beyond, a compendium of folk words, The Elder Tongue. One spine catches your eye, plain black leather, no title. You pull it free, fingers tingling as though the air around it hums. Inside, handwritten pages, symbols, diagrams, fragments of Latin, cryptic instructions. It looks like someone's private study into something. You hear a throat clear behind you. Mr. Phipps stands there, silent as ever. "That shelf is not for staff," he says mildly, though his eyes are hard. You shove the book back, muttering an apology. Historians still argue whether Victorian aristocrats dabbled in the occult for amusement or genuine belief. Judging by this library, the Greymires may lean toward the latter. Mr. Phipps watches you a moment longer, then gestures toward the mop. Back to work. You do as you're told, but your thoughts churn like the storm outside. Between locked cellar doors, ominous jewelry, spiritualist governesses, and now forbidden books. This house isn't just old and drafty. It's hiding something. And with each passing hour, you're being drawn deeper into its secrets, whether you like it or not. The storm rages through the night, shaking the manor's ancient bones. Sleep, already scarce in your world, becomes impossible. You lie awake on your straw mattress, listening to the wind shriek like a banshee across the chimneys, the beams groaning as if the whole house might rip apart. Elsie snores softly beside you, curled under her threadbare blanket. Across the attic, Jack mumbles in his sleep, twitching like a dreaming dog. You envy their unconsciousness. At some point, nature calls, because of course it does, and you pull on your boots, teeth chattering as you creep down the creaky servant stairs toward the back hall. The storm's icy fingers snake through the cracks in the windows, and your candle flickers weakly as you pad through the cold, shadowy corridors. But halfway down, you pause. There's a sound. Not the wind. Not the house settling. Something, lower. Fainter. A murmur of voices. Whispering. You creep closer, candle held aloft. The noise drifts from behind the heavy cellar door. Of course it does. You shouldn't investigate. Every instinct screams it. But curiosity, like damp in the manor walls, is hard to shake. You press your ear to the door. The whispers grow clearer, though not by much. A language you can't place. Harsh consonants, lilting syllables. Occasional, chanting. Your skin prickles. The cellar was locked, yet the voices drift as if from just beyond. You straighten, heart hammering, just as a shape glides down the hall behind you. You nearly drop the candle. It's only Miss Calder, wrapped in a dark shawl. Couldn't sleep either, she asks softly. You nod toward the cellar. Do you hear that? She tilts her head, listens, then shakes her head. Only the wind. But I believe you. Her gaze lingers on the door. That room's older than the house itself. You blink. What do you mean? Historical fact incoming. Many grand Victorian manors were built atop much older foundations, monasteries, castles, even ancient Roman villas. The layers of history quite literally stacked upon each other. Miss Calder's expression darkens. Before Greymire Hall, there was an abbey here. The cellar's all that remains. You stare at the door. Those whispers? Older than the house. Older than you want to imagine. Best get back upstairs, she says, already turning. This place, it listens when you linger too long. Comforting. Back in the attic, sleep finally drags you under, filled with uneasy dreams, flickering shadows, serpents devouring themselves, tiny hands tapping at the window. You wake to weak, watery sunlight. The storm has passed, leaving the manor glazed in ice. Work begins immediately, as always. Trudging through chores, scrubbing frost from windows, polishing silver that never seems to tarnish despite the damp. At midday, Lord Greymire returns. His arrival is announced by the crunch of carriage wheels and the sharp barking of hounds. From a hidden spot near the parlor, you watch him descend, tall, gaunt, swathed in a dark overcoat, with eyes like storm clouds and a mouth set in permanent disapproval. Behind him, footmen unload trunks, heavy, iron-bound things that clunk ominously as they're carried inside. One bears strange, foreign markings along the side. You can't decipher them, but they send a cold ripple down your spine. The household moves like clockwork, servants bustling, fires lit, rooms prepared. You're sent to help with the study, dusting shelves and refilling ink wells. Lord Greymire's presence looms, even when he isn't in the room. As you work, you overhear snatches of conversation. Expedition took longer than expected. Relics from Carpathian settlements. Precautions necessary, given the nature of the objects. Quirky tidbit time. During the Victorian era, wealthy gentlemen often sponsored or participated in archaeological expeditions, especially to remote regions like the Carpathians, driven by curiosity, and, sometimes, by the allure of the occult. You glance at one of the trunks now resting by the hearth, its lock sealed tight, the foreign markings stark against the wood. Elsie corners you later by the scullery. He's been gone months, she whispers. Some say Romania, some say Egypt. Came back with odd things. You nod grimly. You've seen some of those odd things already, the hand of glory, the snake pendant, the strange, whispering cellar. After dinner, the manor quiets, but unease simmers beneath the surface. Lord Greymire retreats to his study, the governess tucks the children into bed, the house slips into restless silence. You pass the landing on your way to the attic and notice something, faint footprints in the dust. Small, barefoot, leading down the east hall. The nursery. Your pulse quickens. It's after midnight. The twins should be asleep. Curiosity, or foolishness, drags you down the hall. You peer inside. The room is empty. Beds rumpled, window ajar, curtain blowing faintly in the breeze. Beyond, small prints in the frost, vanishing into the snow-dusted gardens. You swallow hard. The house isn't the only thing hiding secrets. The children are missing. And the night is far from over. Your boots crunch over the frozen gravel as you follow the tiny footprints into the gardens. The cold bites through your coat, but adrenaline keeps your limbs moving. Ahead, the snow glitters under a sickle moon, casting long shadows across the hedges and skeletal trees. You scan the ground, two sets of small, bare footprints, side by side, weaving between the overgrown topiaries. The twins. Out here. In the dead of night. No nursemaid. No governess. Just, wandering. Or worse, drawn. You round the corner of a hedgerow, heart hammering. The prints lead toward the old chapel ruins. Greymire Hall's chapel predates the manor itself, a crumbling relic from some forgotten century. Ivy strangles the stone walls, the bell tower leans precariously. It's been abandoned for decades, long before your time, but tonight, faint candlelight flickers inside. You should turn back. You absolutely should. But, because you're either brave or stupid, you press on. Inside, the chapel smells of damp earth and mildew. Moonlight spills through shattered stained glass, casting fractured rainbows over the floor. At the altar, a faint glow illuminates two small figures. The twins stand rigid, eyes wide and glassy, as Miss Calder kneels before them. Candles flicker in a precise circle around them, casting eerie shadows that jitter across the walls. In her hand, the governess holds a small, leather-bound book, the same black, unmarked volume from the library. She doesn't seem startled by your arrival. Her eyes flick to you, calm, almost expectant. They've been sleepwalking, she explains quietly, though the atmosphere feels anything but casual. It happens often, now. You eye the candles, the chalk markings on the floor, the strange, faint hum in the air. This doesn't seem like part of the job description. Miss Calder closes the book, her expression unreadable. I was hired for their protection. There are forces at work in this house. The children are vulnerable. Historical fact break. Victorian England saw a surge of interest in child psychology, spiritualism, and the idea that children possessed a special sensitivity to unseen realms. Some believed they could glimpse what adults could not. The twins sway slightly, their lips moving in unison, soft, unintelligible whispers. Your stomach knots. Miss Calder stands. Help me get them back to bed. Together, you guide the dazed children through the gardens, their small hands ice-cold in yours. Their eyes remain unfocused, as though they still walk some dream path only they can see. Back in the nursery, you tuck them under heavy quilts. Their breathing evens. The strange fog lifts from their eyes. They won't remember, Miss Calder murmurs, adjusting the curtains. But it's getting stronger. You rub your arms. What is? She hesitates. The house. Whatever Lord Greymire brought back with him, it feeds on the old places. The cellar, the chapel. Even the library, to a degree. You remember the forbidden shelf, the whispering cellar, the iron-bound trunks. It clicks together like a puzzle with jagged edges. The house isn't just drafty and miserable. It's a magnet. For things better left undisturbed. Miss Calder smooths the twins' blankets with practiced calm. The children carry his blood. They're connected to all of this. If we don't protect them, they'll be the first to suffer. A chill runs deeper than the winter wind. You don't envy her job. The next day, the household moves like nothing happened. Fires lit, silver polished, rugs beaten within an inch of their lives. Lord Greymire stalks the halls, unreadable. The trunks remain sealed in the study. At breakfast, Elsie corners you, eyes wide. Did you see it? Out in the trees. You blink. See what? She lowers her voice. Last night. Something moving. Tall. Wrong. Quirky tidbit time. Victorian folklore is rich with tales of shadowy forest spirits, from the sinister black shuck to the enigmatic green man, remnants of much older, pagan traditions that never fully died. You shake your head, but unease coils in your gut. You believe her. Whatever stalks the manor grounds isn't natural. The day drags. Tasks pile up, laundry, scrubbing floors, polishing brass until your arms ache. Yet everywhere, you sense watchful eyes. The paintings along the halls. The mirrors that reflect faint shapes behind you. The old grandfather clock that ticks half a second out of rhythm. As evening falls, a message trickles through the servants. Lord Greymire is hosting a dinner party. A select gathering, as Mr. Phipps puts it. Translation: powerful, equally unsettling guests. You help set the dining hall. The long table gleams with crystal and silver. Heavy velvet drapes stifle what little daylight remains. A roaring fire crackles beneath the mounted wolf's head above the hearth, a detail you try not to look at too closely. Guests arrive as twilight deepens. Well-dressed, pale-faced, eyes sharp as razors. Among them, scholars, aristocrats, an unsettlingly cheerful bishop, and a woman with jet-black eyes who never blinks. The air hums with hidden conversations. Snippets drift past as you serve wine. Tomb unearthed beneath the abbey. Sealed chamber, markings unlike anything. Precautions inadequate. Historians still argue whether Victorian secret societies like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn were harmless occult enthusiasts, or conduits for darker forces. You're leaning toward the latter. Lord Greymire toasts to knowledge, and its inevitable price. The guests chuckle politely. You shiver. As the evening winds down, you catch Miss Calder watching from the shadows, her expression grim. The twins' fate, your fate, they all feel tangled in whatever web these people are spinning. And the worst part? The night isn't over yet. The guests linger late into the night, their low voices weaving through the halls like smoke. You shuffle quietly between them, clearing glasses, refilling decanters, all while pretending not to hear the whispers of ancient rites and buried things that never stay buried. By the time the last guest slips out into the frozen dark, your legs ache and your head buzzes with the weight of overheard secrets. The manor feels different. Like the walls themselves are exhaling, the whole house settling after holding its breath. You trudge back toward the kitchen, only to find Miss Calder waiting by the stairwell. Her expression is unreadable, but her eyes gleam with quiet urgency. "Come with me," she says simply. Your instincts flare, but curiosity wins again. It always does. You follow her through the sleeping manor, past snoring servants and guttering candle stubs, down the east hall toward the library. She moves like she belongs in the shadows. You stumble after her, boots squeaking faintly on the floorboards. The library looms ahead, its towering shelves and dusty tomes bathed in moonlight. Miss Calder produces an old iron key, the same one from the night in the chapel, and unlocks a hidden panel behind the bookcase. A narrow staircase curls downward, vanishing into the gloom. "Cellar, you guess," voice low. She nods. "But not the one you've seen." "Of course not." You descend together, the air growing colder with each creaking step. Below, rough stone walls stretch into shadow, torch brackets lining the passage, ancient, damp, older than the manor itself. Miss Calder lights a lantern, the faint glow revealing carvings along the walls, strange symbols, weathered faces with hollow eyes, looping scripts that hurt your head to look at. Roman foundations, she explains softly. Parts of the abbey were built on top. But this goes back even further. Historical fact, across Britain, many grand estates incorporated ruins of Roman forts, villas, or temples, sometimes unknowingly, sometimes deliberately, tapping into what they believed were ancient sources of power. You brush your fingers over the carvings, their edges smooth with age. The air hums faintly. Further down, you reach a low chamber. At its center sits a stone pedestal, worn and cracked. Upon it lies a faded cloth bundle, sealed with wax. Miss Calder unwraps it carefully, revealing a fragment of parchment covered in angular, archaic script, and a small, withered hand. You recoil instinctively. Is that a hand of glory? She confirms. They found it bricked behind the altar during renovations. It isn't just folklore. Quirky tidbit time, according to legend, a hand of glory, usually a hanged man's preserved hand, was used by thieves and occultists to render occupants of a house asleep or immobile. Some versions claimed it could unlock any door. You stare at the shriveled thing, skin prickling. Its curled fingers look impossibly old, and faintly twitching. Miss Calder wraps it again. Lord Greymire knows about this place. He's brought other relics back. But he doesn't control them as well as he believes. Why show me, you whisper? Because you're part of this now, whether you like it or not. She replaces the bundle and leads you back upstairs. You emerge into the sleeping manor, nerves frayed, mind buzzing. Sleep eludes you. Even wrapped in your thin blanket, the cold gnaws at your bones, and every creak of the rafters sounds like ancient whispers. By dawn, your head throbs from exhaustion, but duty calls. You stumble through chores, scrubbing hearths, hauling coal, polishing banisters. Lord Greymire departs again that afternoon, carriage wheels crunching over the icy drive. His absence doesn't soothe your nerves. If anything, the house feels more unsettled in his wake. The twins remain subdued, eyes shadowed, their whispers slipping into unfamiliar languages when they think no one hears. Elsie corners you in the laundry room, voice urgent. Something's wrong with the nursery. Toys moving at night. I saw it. You hesitate, but you believe her. After everything, how could you not? That evening, you sneak into the nursery after lights out. The room is dark, moonlight pooling across the floor. At first, nothing happens. But then, a doll rocks gently on its stand. A music box winds itself open, playing a tinny, off-key lullaby. You swallow hard, edging closer. Behind you, the door creaks. Miss Calder slips inside, eyes sharp. You see, she whispers. You nod, throat dry. She kneels beside the toy chest, lifting its false bottom to reveal another hidden compartment. Inside lies a carved wooden idol, its surface blackened with age, its eyes gouged out. Another of his treasures, Miss Calder mutters. They're everywhere. You stare at the idol, dread curling low in your stomach. The manor isn't just a home. It's a collection of artifacts, of ancient curses, of forgotten horrors, hidden in plain sight. And you? You're trapped in the middle of it. Morning breaks cold and brittle as glass. You half expect to find the manor crumbled to dust overnight, or at the very least, the nursery windows blown out by some unseen force. But no, the house stands as it always does, looming, silent, indifferent to human unease. You drag yourself through chores, your limbs aching from sleep deprivation and nerves wound tight as piano wire. The other servants bustle on, oblivious or willfully blind. Elsie avoids the nursery altogether. You can't blame her. By midday, a storm rolls in. Thick clouds smother the sky, and sleet lashes the tall windows. The wind howls down the chimneys, turning the entire house into a groaning, whispering thing. Perfect weather for creeping dread. You're polishing silver in the dining room when Miss Calder appears at your elbow, voice low. The cellar. Tonight. Your spine stiffens, but you nod. It isn't really a question. Evening falls like a shroud. Thunder cracks over the moors. The twins are tucked away, the staff retires, and the manor sinks into uneasy stillness. You slip through the dark halls to the hidden staircase, every floorboard creak magnified by the storm outside. Below, Miss Calder waits, lantern in hand, eyes sharp with determination and fear. We'll need to go further this time, she says simply. The descent feels endless. The air thickens, tasting of damp earth and forgotten things. You pass the Roman carvings, the pedestal with its grim relic, and push deeper, into an older section of the underground. Here, the stone walls grow rougher, less structured. Roots snake through the ceiling. The floor slopes unevenly, slick with moisture. Eventually, you reach a cavernous chamber, its walls covered in faded pictographs, stick figure hunters, strange spiral symbols, animals with too many eyes. Historical fact break: archaeologists have found ancient cave art across the British Isles, some predating the Romans by thousands of years, hinting at prehistoric belief systems lost to time. At the far end stands a rough stone archway, its keystone marked with a symbol that makes your head throb to look at. Beyond it, only darkness. Miss Calder exhales slowly. This is where it seeps through. You don't ask what it is. You have some grim guesses by now. She hands you a bundle of salt, old iron nails, and a small glass vial of thick, reddish liquid. Protective charms. You sincerely hope they work better than the drafty windows upstairs. Together, you place the charms around the archway, tracing faint sigils into the dirt floor. Miss Calder murmurs in a language you don't recognize, half Latin, half something else entirely. As you work, the shadows beyond the archway pulse and shift, forming vague, unsettling shapes. At one point, you swear you see long, skeletal fingers curl briefly into view, before retreating into the dark. Historians still argue, Miss Calder says quietly, whether these old folk rituals, salt, iron, blood, actually work, or if they simply give us the illusion of control. You grit your teeth, pressing another nail into the soil. I'll take the illusion. A deep, guttural whisper rolls through the chamber, rattling the stones. Your skin breaks out in goosebumps. But the shadows hesitate at the threshold, unable, or unwilling, to cross. When you finally retreat, your hands tremble, your heart pounding against your ribs like a trapped bird. Back upstairs, the manor feels quieter. Less predatory. For now. The next day brings a rare dose of mundane distraction. The house buzzes with preparations for Lady Greymire's arrival. You nearly drop your polishing cloth. She's alive? Alive and thoroughly unpleasant, Elsie mutters. You'll see. By evening, a carriage crunches down the icy drive. Out steps a tall, sharp-featured woman swathed in furs, her expression colder than the moors in January. Her eyes, piercing blue and utterly humorless, sweep the manor with practiced disdain. The staff lines up. You keep your head down, but her gaze lingers on you a moment longer than necessary. Dinner is tense. Lady Greymire picks at her food, her clipped words laced with veiled insults. Lord Greymire, for his part, barely acknowledges her. His little expeditions, she sneers at one point, cost more than they're worth. And what do they bring? Dust. Curses. Broken minds. Quirky tidbit time. Victorian explorers, especially those dabbling in Egyptology or Oriental relics, often faced accusations of bringing home ancient curses, especially after high-profile deaths linked to tomb discoveries. You exchange a glance with Miss Calder. Neither of you correct her. The days blur together. Storms batter the manor. The children sleepwalk again, whispering strange words into the dark. Miss Calder conducts quiet rituals in forgotten corners. You assist, because pretending ignorance feels far more dangerous now. At one point, you sneak into Lord Greymire's study, curiosity outweighing self-preservation. You rifle through documents, shipping manifests from Cairo, old sketches of burial sites, cryptic notes about the veil and threshold alignments. It's worse than you thought. The manor isn't just built on ancient ruins. It's a doorway. Or a crack in one. And something is trying to widen it. You don't sleep much after that revelation. Not that you slept well before. But now, every creak of the manor feels heavier, every draft of cold air more deliberate, like the house itself is exhaling something ancient through its cracks. Lady Greymire wastes no time asserting her authority. She storms through the halls, pointing out specks of dust, scolding footmen for invisible wrinkles, and making the scullery maids cry on more than one occasion. Her voice slices through the manor like a cold wind. You try to avoid her. Unfortunately, your curiosity has made you visible. On your way to fetch linens, she corners you near the upstairs gallery. Her eyes narrow. You're the new one. Yes, ma'am, you mutter, dipping your head. She studies you like you're a loose thread on her embroidered gloves. Keep your nose out of places it doesn't belong. You nod. But she knows. Somehow, she knows you've seen more than you should. The storm worsens that night. Rain lashes the windows, and wind howls through the chimneys. Somewhere beneath it, faint knocking echoes from inside the walls. You try to tell yourself it's just loose beams. You fail. In the morning, Miss Calder informs you the archway in the underground chamber shifted. Just a little. But enough. His relics, she says grimly, are poking holes we can't patch fast enough. The manor wasn't always like this, you learn. Back in the 17th century, it was a modest estate on the edge of the moors. It wasn't until Lord Greymire's great-grandfather expanded it, deliberately building over the abbey ruins, that things changed. Historical fact, across Britain, especially in rural areas, many grand homes were intentionally built over ancient abbeys, Roman forts, or burial sites, both for practical use of old stone and, sometimes, due to lingering superstitions of inherited power. The current lord's fascination with antiquities has only made it worse. He collects them the way some men collect stamps, Egyptian amulets, Etruscan masks, bone fragments sealed in glass. Most displayed proudly. Some hidden away. You've seen enough horror novels to know that never ends well. The children get worse. Their eyes glaze over during meals. They hum tuneless songs under their breath. At one point, you find them tracing the same spiral symbol into the frost on the windowpane, the same spiral etched into the stone below. Historians still argue, Miss Calder remarks one evening as you both clean silver by lamplight, whether these ancient symbols were protection charms, or invitations. You polish faster. The staff grows restless. Whispers spread, of shadows moving without source, of livestock found dead in the snow, of a milkmaid's cousin disappearing near the standing stones beyond the manor grounds. Quirky tidbit, across Yorkshire and northern England, prehistoric stone circles and standing stones dot the landscape. Folklore claims some are fairy gates or cursed sites where people vanish. You stay away from the stones. Unfortunately, the manor isn't so easily avoided. Lady Greymire calls for a private gathering, just family and a few trusted associates. You and Elsie are assigned to serve. The drawing room flickers with candlelight. Bookshelves loom. Heavy drapes block the storm outside. The guests, wealthy, sharp-eyed, unervingly pale, whisper in low voices. You catch fragments, thinning of the veil, alignment approaching, the hand must be used. Miss Calder's words echo in your skull, you're part of this now. During the gathering, you slip away for air, heart pounding. But as you pass the nursery, a faint whimper stops you. Inside, the twins lie stiff in bed, eyes wide open, mouths forming silent words. On the floor, the gouged wooden idol sits upright, though you know no one placed it there. You snatch the idol, wrapping it in cloth. The wood burns cold against your skin. Back in the hidden cellar, Miss Calder helps you lock it away beside the Hand of Glory and other unsettling relics. This house is a wound, she mutters, voice low. And he's prying it open. Sleep that night feels impossible. The manor creaks and groans like an old ship in a storm. But eventually, exhaustion claims you. You dream of the underground chamber. The archway is wide now, blackness pouring through like ink. Skeletal hands stretch toward you. Whispered voices hiss promises you can't quite understand. You wake in the pre-dawn gloom, throat dry, sheets tangled. But the knocking inside the walls hasn't stopped. And this time, it sounds closer. The knocking follows you all morning. Faint, irregular, as if some unseen thing is tapping at the bones of the manor itself. No one else mentions it. Either they can't hear it, or they've learned better than to acknowledge it. The snow piles against the windowsills, muting the world outside. The fireplaces roar, but the cold still seeps in, creeping down your spine, clinging to your fingers. Even the brass doorknobs feel icy, no matter how close they sit to the hearths. Lord Greymire is in high spirits, which is never a good sign. He stalks the halls with that unnerving glint in his eyes, mumbling to himself in fragmented Latin and something that definitely isn't Latin. You overhear snippets as you polish the banisters. The veil, thinnest, convergence approaching. You meet Miss Calder's gaze across the hall. She doesn't need to speak. You both know something is coming. The manor feels like a coiled spring, tense, ready to snap. After lunch, the twins vanish. Panic spikes your pulse as the household searches room to room. It's Elsie who finds them, curled together beneath the nursery bed, eyes wide, faces pale as bone. They heard voices, she whispers to you, shivering. In the walls. Of course they did. Miss Calder wastes no time. That evening, while the other servants busy themselves with dinner preparations, she leads you back to the hidden cellar. The bundle containing the hand of glory lies undisturbed, the wooden idol beside it. But the archway. It's wider now. You both stare at the jagged opening, shadows rippling along the edges. The faint sound of whispers drifts through, wrong, wet-sounding syllables that make your skin crawl. Miss Calder begins placing salt and nails again, muttering in that old, churning language. You mimic her movements, trying not to tremble. Historians still argue, she says, voice tight, whether these rituals ever worked, or if they simply gave us false hope. The alternative is unbearable. You retreat upstairs, your nerves frayed. Outside, the storm builds. Snow lashes the windows. Thunder grumbles over the moors. At dinner, Lord Greymire announces an upcoming expedition, to the standing stones beyond the estate. You barely conceal your alarm. Historical fact, Yorkshire's moors are dotted with prehistoric standing stones and burial mounds. The most famous, the Rudston monolith, stands nearly 8 meters tall and dates back over 4,000 years. Locals long believed these stones marked sacred or cursed ground. Alignment draws near, Lord Greymire proclaims to his select guests, eyes glittering with excitement. We must be ready. Lady Greymire glares, lips pursed, but says nothing. Even she knows better than to argue when her husband gets that look. Later, in the scullery, Elsie leans close. What alignment? You explain as best you can, the veil, the cracks, the relics hidden beneath the manor. Her eyes widen. We have to leave, she hisses. You want to. But something tells you it's far too late for that. the twins wake screaming that night. You and Miss Calder rush to the nursery, only to find the walls scratched with spirals and stick figures in charcoal, the same crude shapes from the underground chamber. And worse, the stone idol is gone from its hiding place. Panic sets in. You search the manor from attic to basement. No sign of the idol. But in the great hall, muddy footprints lead from the front door, out into the snow. Lord Greymire, Miss Calder breathes, realization dawning. He's taken the idol, to the standing stones. You don't hesitate. Bundling in your warmest, and still woefully inadequate, coat, you follow Miss Calder and Elsie into the storm. The wind cuts like knives. Snow blinds your eyes. But you push on, boots crunching over frozen earth, the faint glow of lanterns guiding your way. The standing stones loom ahead, monolithic shapes rising from the moor like crooked teeth. Figures circle the largest stone, Lord Greymire, his guests, and in his gloved hand, the idol. They chant low and steady. The wind howls louder, as if protesting. Miss Calder pulls you aside. If the veil tears now. She doesn't finish. You don't need her to. Quirky tidbit. Some Victorian occultists believed certain nights, especially during lunar alignments, created temporary doorways to other realms. They'd gather at ancient sites to thin the boundaries. Most of them, however, did not risk unleashing unspeakable horrors. But Lord Greymire isn't most occultists. The air crackles. The stone arches pulse faintly, spirals glowing like embers. Shadows twist unnaturally beyond the light. You spot the idol resting on a crude stone altar. Its eyeless face seems pleased. No time, Miss Calder whispers. She presses a small, heavy pouch into your hand, salt, iron, fragments of broken glass. We disrupt the circle. Scatter these. The next moments blur. You creep along the edge of the stones, snow crunching underfoot, heart in your throat. You toss handfuls of the mixture into the glowing spirals, muttering nonsense prayers. The chanting falters. The glow dims. Lord Greymire's head snaps around, eyes wide with fury. The ground shudders. Shadows writhe. A deep, guttural growl rises from beyond the veil. You sprint for Miss Calder's side as the ritual collapses into chaos. Guests flee. The idol shatters. The standing stones hold. For now. The storm swallows the sounds. You stumble back to the manor, soaked, breathless, alive. But not safe. Never safe. The manor never really sleeps after that. In the quiet hours, when the wind hushes and the hearth embers glow faintly, you still hear the walls shifting. The creaks and knocks have softened, but they're still there, like something deeper beneath the floorboards is biding its time. The standing stones remain intact, and the idol, thank whatever luck you have left, is now a pile of splinters locked beneath the manor. But no one truly believes this is over. Lady Greymire doesn't speak to you anymore. Whether out of disdain or fear, you can't say. But you often catch her watching the children with a guarded, calculating expression, as if waiting to see what, if anything, is growing inside them now. Miss Calder has become your unlikely confidant. She lets you assist with the subtle protections, salt lines under windowsills, charms hidden in the laundry, even tiny carved symbols tucked beneath loose floorboards. Small measures, she reminds you, looping twine around dried herbs one morning. But small measures can delay the inevitable. Historians still argue whether such superstitions were ever effective, whether wards, salt circles, and charms actually kept darkness at bay or simply made people feel less powerless. But in this house, you'll take all the false hope you can get. Historical fact: in Victorian England, household protections, like horseshoes over doorways, witch bottles buried near hearths, and iron tools by windows, were remarkably common, blending folk magic with Christian rituals. The twins improve, slightly. Their cheeks regain some color, and the humming fades. But they remain odd. Their eyes linger too long on empty corners. Their drawings still swirl with spirals and strange shapes. Elsie wants to leave. Badly. "I'll take work at the next manor over," she says one afternoon, scrubbing the scullery floor. "Or I'll milk cows in the village, anything but stay here." You want to agree. But something keeps you tethered. Maybe it's stubbornness. Maybe it's the quiet, creeping guilt that says, if you leave, who will help Miss Calder? Who will keep the twins safe? And maybe, just maybe, you've realized there's no true escape. The manor feels alive. Its walls breathe. Its shadows watch. Even beyond its grounds, that wrongness clings to your skin like smoke. Winter thaws into a damp, reluctant spring. The snow melts, revealing muddy moors and gray skies that never fully brighten. The villagers avoid the estate, their suspicious glances sharper than ever. A stable boy quits without warning. 2 maids follow. You stay. The underground chamber remains locked, the archway sealed, mostly. But cracks spider along its edges, whispering promises of future breaches. Quirky tidbit: some Victorian manor houses deliberately sealed off certain rooms, often blamed on bad energy or tragic events. Superstition claimed shutting a space preserved peace, though in this manner, you suspect the locked doors hide worse than mildew. The days settle into uneasy routine. You polish silver, fold linens, and exchange tight-lipped glances with Miss Calder. The nights, well, the nights stretch long and restless. You still hear the knocking sometimes. Faint. Patient. One evening, as twilight bleeds across the sky, Lord Greymire vanishes. No farewell, no servant summoned, just gone. His study ransacked, ancient maps missing, journals emptied. The standing stones beyond the more bare fresh disturbances, turned earth, strange symbols etched in the moss. Lady Greymire locks herself in her room for days. The staff tiptoes through the halls, as though sound alone might stir sleeping shadows. And you endure. You tend the hearths. You care for the twins. You help Miss Calder bind charms and lay salt. You watch the walls and listen for the quiet thrum of something ancient, waiting beneath your feet. The manor never truly sleeps. And neither, it seems, do you. As spring deepens and the days lengthen, a fragile peace settles over the estate. But you know better now. You've walked the cellars, seen the cracked archway, heard the whispers through the stones. Peace, here, is never permanent. It's just the hush before the next storm. But tonight is quiet. The hearth crackles gently. The wind sighs beyond the windows. The children sleep soundly, for now. You sit by the fire, shoulders aching, eyelids heavy, staring into the embers. And though the manor holds its breath, though the shadows linger, for the first time in months, you feel the faintest thread of hope winding through the cold. You survived. For now. The fire has burned low now, just a warm shimmer across the hearthstone. The wind outside has softened to a distant murmur, like the old manor itself has finally settled under its heavy, creaking bones. You sit back, easing the tension from your shoulders, feeling the last traces of cold lift from your fingertips. It's quiet here for the moment. The shadows no longer stretch quite so far, and the walls, though still full of secrets, have gone still for the night. The faint glow of candlelight dances across the wooden beams overhead, casting slow, sleepy patterns that melt into the soft dark. Beyond the window, the moors stretch out under a pale sky, rolling and endless. The standing stones are hidden in the mist, tucked away under the hush of the land. Even the echoes of footsteps, the tapping in the walls, feel distant now, as though the house itself is finally dozing off with you. Your eyes grow heavier. The weight of the long days and the uneasy night settles over you, not frightening anymore, just familiar, a quiet presence keeping watch as you drift. Let it all fade, the cold, the shadows, the whispered warnings. For now, they're just part of the distant dark beyond the walls. You're safe, here by the glow of the fire, wrapped in the thick wool of blankets and the soft hum of the manor's old bones. Close your eyes now. The house will keep its secrets a little longer. And you can finally rest. Sweet dreams.